Hi, everyone. It's Joe Veneri, the host of Fit Insider, the show where I talk with the entrepreneurs, executives, and investors who are redefining the business of fitness and wellness. Today, I'm joined by Josh Clemente, the founder of Levels, a metabolic fitness company. In today's episode, we talked about continuous glucose monitoring and using Levels to unlock real-time feedback on lifestyle choices, like what you eat, how you exercise, and the quality of your sleep. We also discussed Josh's plan to make metabolic fitness mainstream in hopes of tackling obesity, diabetes, and other chronic ailments. Let's get into it. Hi, Josh. Welcome to Fit Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Super excited to be here, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Looking forward to this conversation. And I think just to kick things off, can you tell listeners about what you're working on at Levels?
Absolutely. So Levels is the first metabolic fitness company. We close the loop between daily actions and the metabolic reactions that people are experiencing by using the technology, both hardware and software, that is necessary to access and learn from your personal health data in real time. So the example would be continuous glucose monitoring, which is where we're starting out. And so our customers are actively learning about their diet, exercise, sleep, stress, all these variables that they have control over and how they're affecting them in real time by accessing their glucose levels, which is the sugar in their blood. It's an energy source for the body. They're accessing those and understanding the levels through the Levels app and analytics platform in the moment.
So you kind of touched on it there, the software and hardware to understand that feedback loop. Can you kind of expand on what that software and hardware looks like today and maybe how people are using it and interacting with the product?
Sure. So the hardware itself was originally developed for the management of diabetes. And it's been, sort of in the lab or in various stages of development for several decades now. And it's reached a point in the technology curve where it is now essentially, it is entirely convenient to use in your daily life. There's no real overhead associated with using it. These devices are factory calibrated to correspond your interstitial glucose levels, which is the glucose in your skin, to your blood glucose levels. And they're a small patch that you wear full-time continuously for about 2 weeks, and they can communicate wirelessly with any new smartphone. And so you now have a technology that allows you to have what is, in essence, a bio-wearable. So similar to the way you would wear a Garmin or an Apple Watch, you can now wear a device that is giving you a much deeper metric than your step count or your heart rate. And so the interesting thing is all this hardware development has been critical to advance the technology, but it has not come with a corresponding improvement in the actionability of the data itself. So you can get a raw data stream from this technology that was developed for diabetes management, but how do you know how to tailor your sleep, for example, or your exercise timing, or your diet? What do you add and remove without a PhD level understanding of a glucose curve and what matters about it? The rate of change and how high it goes, how long it stays high. It's very challenging to use this effectively, and so that is Levels' core competency: is the data science, the analytics, and the accessibility of the hardware. So giving people an access pathway to this prescription quality, clinical grade hardware.
Absolutely. It makes a ton of sense as someone who's kind of very interested in this space. And it fits squarely into what we think of now as like personalized healthcare, personalized well-being, all the different ways that we're getting this data, the devices, the hardware, as you mentioned. It's really now a consumer product for me to put on and use with the subscription or my smartphone or whatever it might be. When you think about now, somebody kind of putting that glucose monitor on, you have the app that reads it. What are the business model, the corresponding product offerings that kind of sit on top of that you guys are able to sell?
So, just to kind of give a high level of how this even began, like I personally have an invested interest in this technology doing what we intend for it to do, which is to make metabolic health, metabolic fitness action. It's easy and obvious. So we need to develop and we have made significant strides on developing the specific sort of layers and features in a platform and an app that allow you, again, to seize on the issues that you are dealing with. And everyone has their own qualitative experience. Everyone has their own struggles or performance goals, whether that's losing weight, shaving a few tenths off of 50K, reversing a long-term, inflammatory concern. There are many things people are struggling with, but the biggest one, and one that I dealt with, was, I just wanted to make it through the workday with my energy levels intact. And I was struggling. I was working at SpaceX on life support systems, and I was like pretty familiar with this space. I'm a CrossFit trainer. I have, always thought that I was up to speed on my nutrition and how my diet, should be tailored for optimal energy. And yet at the same time, I was just totally flagging. I needed caffeine to get me through the day. 2:00 was like I was crashing, unable to make to the next meeting. And so I realized by using continuous glucose monitoring that my diet explicitly was causing extreme variations in my blood sugar, which is it is the primary energy molecule in the modern human, and it's upstream of a huge cascade of hormones that affect how we feel and how our bodies respond to our nutrition. And so it was obvious to me by using the technology what I needed to change. But the problem is it took me about 14 months of studying the literature in order to understand explicitly what levers to pull on. And so what Levels is doing is we have to build the platform, the analytics system that takes all that overhead away, so that when you go and you sit down for lunch, you don't need a PhD, you don't need a master's degree in nutrition in order to know what specific changes you're making. And so that's entirely the focus of the current platform is building the actionable sort of lifestyle logging necessary to interact with your glucose levels in real time and make this something that you can easily learn from as it happens.
When you think about what that looks like now, and you mentioned kind of having gone through the process of wearing a glucose monitor, trying to figure out for yourself what the reactions meant, what you needed to do, reading the literature, and now Levels simplifying that, kind of where is the gap between those two things? Because obviously, as you mentioned, people wearing a glucose monitor for diabetes, for example, but we still kind of have like skyrocketing rates of obesity and diabetes. And here on the other side, the flip side of the equation, we have a ton of people who are kind of interested in optimization, kind of living that, what we think of as like a high performance lifestyle. Where does Levels sit on that spectrum? And do you see it more tailored towards that optimization, high performing individual, or is this like a mass solution potentially to some of the bigger issues we're facing?
Well, so that's the ultimate goal here is to make a meaningful dent in metabolic health outcomes around the world. And so, if you ask any experts, so there was an International Commission of Diabetes Experts who convened in 2009, and they published some really interesting findings. And that was that this traditional understanding of metabolic health as a threshold disorder where you are healthy until suddenly you are not is completely wrong. And what's really happening is there is a spectrum upon which there is no lower bound wherein there is no risk. Essentially, improving your metabolic health markers will always come with a corresponding improvement in your long-term risk. And so it doesn't matter really whether you are an elite athlete or whether you are someone who has been struggling with lifelong chronic health issues. The point is that the information that you need is currently available in your body. You just need to tap into it and use it. And so I would argue that, although we're entering the market in a premium lifestyle space, similar to many brands like, Peloton, where there's a hardware, a software component, it's an exceptional user experience. We will eventually be the metabolic fitness organization that people come to optimize their choices daily, no matter what they're struggling with or focusing on.
Yeah, I definitely see that kind of comparison when you think about maybe a Peloton or other wearable devices, personalized healthcare, for example. So you can just speak about who the target customer is today, how you're going about acquiring them. And I know you guys are in kind of a closed beta right now, so maybe you can talk about that a little bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, we, as a closed beta, we're essentially hand picking or interviewing every single customer that comes through the program. And the intention there is to really understand the specific goals and what these individuals are hoping to acquire through the use of Levels. And obviously, that feeds into the development process for the technology itself. The primary user group right now is what we're calling the health seekers, or people who are currently interested in making better choices daily. And, these are people who maybe are, using nutritionists or shopping at higher end organic food stores. They typically will have a fitness trainer or fitness goals of some kind. And so that's where we're starting. But as we, one interesting thing is we're learning that the weight loss crowd in particular is already interested in exactly the same information. So the features that we've developed are applying to more than just the biohacker or the technologist. It's already applicable to the people on the opposite end of the scale.
And for now, when you're talking about going in with the health seekers or maybe someone who's seeking to improve their fitness, improve their weight loss goals, what does that customer journey look like? Maybe I sign up, I'm getting the device, I'm getting a subscription. Can you walk me through what that experience looks like from the consumer end?
Yeah. So all the technology right now is regulated in the United States as a Class 3 medical device, and so what that means is that there is a prescription requirement. So what we've done and what we've built at Levels is a relationship with a third-party telehealth, 50-state telehealth organization, and these physicians, there's a as part of the process of onboarding, we have a very direct-to-consumer process of ordering. And then during that onboarding, you fill out a medical history form that goes to one of our partner physicians, and they perform a consultation to ensure that this technology is a good fit for you. And so every one of our users has a prescription for the use of continuous glucose monitoring. And then if approved during that physician engagement, which is very similar, you can think of like the Hims or the Romans of the world of the direct-to-consumer healthcare space, you then receive a pharmacy fulfilled box with the levels kit, and inside there are two 14-day prescriptions continuous glucose monitors. And so you then onboard into the Levels ecosystem, download the app, you have full-time engagement with the Levels team, and you start by just seeing, measuring your glucose responses to the decisions you're making daily, and you learn where you are today, so sort of what your baseline is. And then through the ongoing second and third weeks, you start to explore, see where the edge cases are, how you're responding to certain factors. And then ultimately in the fourth week, you shoot for optimization. So bringing together all the insights you've learned about your specific body and how you are responding to the decisions you're making, you shoot for using the features like our zone scores and our metabolic fitness score. You shoot for that perfect streak. So bringing together all the insights and seeing how much control you can actually exert over the way you respond to your lifestyle. And so the whole program is built as a 28-day program right now. So you can learn a huge amount in that single month, and you can carry that on to your life going forward. And we also offer ongoing subscription options after that first month. The month is it's a bit more intensive. So you have like daily, weekly, and monthly reports, so summary reports to show how you're trending overall. And so for that ongoing subscription option, all of that information is delivered through the app.
And just digging a little deeper on what people are experiencing with the glucose monitor, ultimately the idea is that different foods and behaviors, fitness, exercise, sleep, all those things impact the body differently. And so when you're eating, something that I might perceive to be healthy, actually it's sending my glucose skyrocketing and actually terrible for me. So Levels is helping me kind of see what's happening, and then I'm able to make these adjustments on an ongoing basis based on, what I'm seeing, again, from what you mentioned, the data and that kind of dashboard. When people do that and you think about, so there's this initial 28-day period and then the subscriptions that are on top of that, like other wearables that might track, heart rate or step counts, there's kind of that risk that people just stop using it, right? They get a good sense of like how their body responds and then what they need to do. And then they can kind of taper off and maybe stop using the device or the subscription. How are you guys thinking about that or combating that?
So to go back to my original experience with the technology, so I put this CGM technology on for the first time. I was having fatigue issues, and what I quickly learned in the first week is that my glucose was way out of range. And after a bit more research, I discovered that I was either pre-diabetic fully or borderline pre-diabetic, depending on who you ask. And the factors here, I was going out of my way to cook myself a wholesome meal every single day. I cooked all of my own meals. They were entirely whole foods based, so I was not using a bunch of processed junk. And what was happening is I was just selecting foods that my body did not respond favorably to. And there's now, with CGM technology, there is a new sort of wave of research coming out. The landmark study was done by the Weizmann Institute in Israel, which showed that two people can eat the exact same two foods and experience an equal and opposite response. So this example was a banana and a cookie made with wheat, and the one person had a large glucose excursion on the banana, but was flat on the cookie. And the other person was the opposite. So a large excursion with the cookie and nothing to the banana. And so these personalizations have been then further demonstrated in follow-on studies around the world. And what it's telling us is that there is no one size fits all solution. Each person is different, and the factors are wide and varied. So the nuance between how you will respond to the same meal is so widespread. So it's so deep that it's hard to tell within the first month. It's hard to even describe how many lessons can be learned. You're learning things about timing. You're learning things about macronutrient composition. You're learning things about the effects of stress, work meetings, aggressive, sort of coworkers that you're dealing with. All of these things can influence the way that you're responding to a meal that you just consumed. And so there's so many levers to pull to start to bring in mindfulness, to start to bring in sleep, and then of course the diet and exercise. That we found that people just a month, for many of them, you can learn many lessons. But for myself, for example, I've been wearing this for 2 years, and I am using this technology in the same way as I was at the very beginning, with the added benefit of accountability. So the lessons I've already learned are being sort of reinforced daily. But then the sort of ongoing benefit is that when I'm wearing the technology, I know at this point how I will likely respond to specific choices. And the beauty of it is it's like having a trainer in the room with you 24/7. You know that you're going to have to face the music if you make that choice that goes against your goals. You're going to see the data and you're going to see the scoring, and it's going to really, it's one of those things that people who are goal oriented, who want to make change, when they see their body telling them that they're working against their goals, it's sort of a non decision. You just don't do it. And that's what our users are telling us.
Yeah, the accountability piece I think is huge, and having that, as you put it, the trainer in the room, I think is a good way of phrasing it, to think about the value. From the other side of it, when you talk about interpreting the data, can you talk to us about what people are seeing? So what feedback is Levels giving them that can help them now interpret these maybe spikes or crashes and things like that they see with their energy throughout the day? How does the software work from that standpoint?
So the biggest thing that we do is we bring in inputs. So this would be your choices around diet, exercise, and sleep, for example, through integrations with Apple Health Kit, Google Fit, so that we can take in additional wearable data that you might already be using. And then also we bring in your food logging. So we don't require everyone to tap in, the calories and grams of fat, the macronutrient split. What we're trying to do is just drive up adherence maximally so that the individual logs their lifestyle choice, and then the Levels algorithm follows along as your glucose responds. And because these devices are measuring continuously, you have a very rich, high resolution data set. So Levels will analyze your response, your body's response to a choice that you make, or a series of choices that happen in close proximity to each other. And then it provides you with essentially a grade or a review rating on that series of decisions. So a classic example would be you eat a personal pizza and you lie on the couch. So you'll get a score for that choice, depending on how you respond to the ingredients of that pizza, your stress environment, your genetics, your microbiome, even your body composition will all impact how you respond to that pizza. Now, you'll get that score from the Levels device, and then you can for example, the next day, eat the exact same pizza, and instead of lying on the couch, you go for a 30 or 40-minute walk, or even a 15-minute walk. And that walk significantly will impact your body's metabolic response to that same pizza that you ate yesterday, and it will modify it. And what Levels does is it passively pulls that information in, understands, and shows to you the impact of your choices. So we use comparison functions, we use activity catalogs, and we use these zone scores that detect which decisions are impacting each other, so that we can show you how modifying your behavior with that walk is the low-hanging fruit. It is the actionable choice that you can make if you're going to indulge to still enjoy yourself while truncating or modulating your body's negative response to it. And so these are the kinds of choices. And then another one is sleep. So you see how you respond to a day's dietary choices on 5.5 hours of sleep, and compare that to after 9 hours of sleep. And you'll see the impact of acute insulin resistance, which is something that we know has been demonstrated in research trials many times, that short sleep really affects how you process insulin, which affects how your body can pull glucose out of your bloodstream. And so when we can show you that, those red eye flights or just staying up late watching TV has a meaningful impact on your body's ability to process the food that you're giving it, and you can modulate that by just making better sleep decisions, for people who are struggling with weight loss, or for people who are trying to just hit performance goals or just have higher mental clarity in the office. It's very easy to see these and to make better choices. And these sorts of they sound anecdotal, but the evidence is overwhelmingly demonstrated in clinical trials. And then we're seeing the individuals also basically identifying this on their own and choosing to just make a better choice in situ. They haven't read a bunch of academic journals. They just see how their body's changing and choose the better one of the two options.
Yeah, one piece that is certainly interesting is looking and being able to make that connection and as you mentioned, close the feedback loop and help people connect the dots, really. And the other piece is what you're talking about, seeing this on the graph or in the Levels app. It's something that I've actually noticed on social media where people have started to take screenshots of their app and say, oh, this food did this to me, or, this particular taking a walk, or this helped mitigate the impact of the glucose. So you start to see this really cool kind of emergence of people sharing the screenshots of their Levels app. And I liken that to, you've also seen it with maybe the Whoop band or 8 Sleep or Aura Ring. People, this social validation that they're using it, they're learning so much, and that it's working for them. Mm-hmm. And when I start to think about that, is there a concern that, with all these different devices, watches, Apple Watch, Aura Ring, Whoop band, 8 Sleep, and then all the different subscriptions that somebody might have, that there's an overload of like these devices or subscriptions that people can choose from?
Well, I think it's for certain people, it is certainly the case that you can get data fatigue. But what I would argue is that most of what we've seen thus far is what I call superficial metrics. So I can count my own pulse. I can count my own steps. My phone does it. It's not super useful for the average person to understand, 10,000 steps, closing your rings is really valuable. But, the value of understanding your biological data, so the data that really underlies your long-term health. And this is connected, just to kind of zoom out and talk about some of the problems we're facing in this country. We have a straight up metabolic health epidemic. 88% of the country is metabolically unhealthy. We've got metabolic breakdown associated with 7 of the top 10 causes of death here in the US. There are 90 million people in the United States that have pre-type 2 diabetes, and 90% of those do not know they have that condition. So metabolic breakdown, specifically glucose dysregulation, is associated with cardiovascular disease. It's associated with Alzheimer's disease. It's associated with cancer. We have in this country and globally increasing rates of metabolic dysfunction. And so to have access to real-time metabolic information, to real-time glucose information, to be able to optimize around that is, I think, it's entirely new and in a different category, which again is the biowearable category than what we've seen from other wearables. It is a truly transformational step in the right direction for people to be able to, at an individual level, see and identify the actions that contribute to metabolic balance, control, flexibility, fitness, whatever term you like to use, but the choices that are associated with better long-term outcomes, and just make them, on their own individually. You do that enough times and that compounds into social scale change. And so I would say, yes, there certainly is, plenty of questioning of whether all the wristwatches are helping people be healthier. But I would argue that this is not super comparable there for those reasons.
Right. And I'm in 100% agreement, right, that the issues around obesity, diabetes, as it relates to, causes of death and also cancer, all types of other chronic illnesses is a huge issue. But to some extent, the idea that, glucose, the response that and the impact it has on our body and measuring that with a glucose monitor isn't necessarily new. So going from the place of getting the kind of high performing individuals, these health seekers, to use it, to full scale social change, which is an amazing vision. And frankly, I hope you get there or somebody gets there. Like, what does that roadmap look like in your mind to achieve something like that? Recognizing that you're still in the early stages in terms of the company and developing the platform.
So the thing that's going on that I think is really fascinating is that we have a very understudied or straight up unstudied space here. We have now Levels, the largest non-diabetic glucose data set ever. And that it kind of tells you something. It tells you that despite all of this technology development, what we have is a really good understanding of what dysfunction looks like, but we don't have a good understanding of what normal and what optimal looks like, because it's not been studied with high resolution information like continuous glucose monitoring. And so the roadmap is glucose is a single metric. It's a very valuable one. It's one that, as I mentioned, is associated with a lot of long-term breakdown and many of the concerns that we have in this country and abroad. But what we need to do is continue to expand our understanding of metabolic optimization. And so we'll be introducing, on the Levels platform, we'll be introducing additional analytes. Think the ability to measure free fatty acids, ketones in real time, additional analytes that you might have to get blood tests for if you're interested, like insulin, like your lipid profile in your bloodstream, all of those metrics that are also, in addition to glucose, associated with longevity and health span. And so continuing to build out a high resolution model of each individual and their metabolic condition in real time, and then giving them the technology to make good choices that are optimizing those key variables, those key metrics for time. And so, that is the Levels approach. We're going to continue to introduce additional technology, additional analytes, and move, to the mainstream. And so, yes, we're starting with this sort of premium lifestyle brand, which is it's very targeted towards people who know that they want this. They already are looking for this solution. But ultimately, we understand that the majority of people need this technology for at least, some period of time in their lives. And, someday I don't see what's interesting about the technology is I don't see it fading out. Let's say that we achieve our goal of reversing metabolic outcomes in this country, and people are healthy, and we no longer have a type 2 diabetes epidemic. This technology does not become meaningless in that environment. So anyone, no matter who you are, can optimize. And in particular, in the performance world, this is a real game changer. It's a paradigm shift to be able to access your energy levels in real time. And so we have elite athletes like Anthony Kunkel, who's he's an ultra marathon runner. He's been fat adapting for about 11 years now. So just focusing on improving his ability to oxidize fat for his runs. And he's using our technology to make even further optimizations because he's always had to go off these point measurements until now. And so, there's a very bright future where across the metabolic spectrum, we are bringing real-time analytes into the hands of people who need them for their specific goals.
Definitely. And how do you think about kind of bridging that gap as you think about that maybe high performer or health seeker who wants this type of solution and knows that they want it? And then as you start to break into the more mainstream, building the brand, the resources and education that goes along with that, and really the entire kind of funnel that paints you as the leader in metabolic fitness, but also for the education, the resources, again, the brand, the personalities that come along with it. Because initially referencing somebody like Peloton, for example, obviously have done a great job building the brand, but also leveraging their instructors as kind of the celebrities and helping them build that audience and market that way. You can kind of go brand by brand who have started at this higher end and then broken into the mainstream. How do you think about doing that from an awareness, education, resource perspective?
Yeah, so one of our primary focuses is on the educational component here. It's hard to argue that metabolic health is not front of mind in society right now, even though we're faced with all of these, terrifying statistics. It's not something people think about often, and traditionally, it's been thought that metabolic health is just something you either have or you don't have. You check your blood. You get your biomarkers checked or whatever at your annual checkup once a year, and you predict your entire sort of health trajectory off of these single blood point measurements. And that is, it's something that has to change. It has not adapted as the technology has. And so our focus at Levels is to develop the content and deliver the content to the people who need it, and sort of appeal to them, meet them where they are. So Casey Means, Stanford trained medical doctor, former surgeon. She's one of our co-founders, and she's basically taking the lead on the content effort and helping to distribute, through our blog, through cross collaborations, and through, for example, podcasts, help to distribute this information out so that people start to pay attention and realize that metabolic health is not something that sick people have to worry about. it's something that every person has a responsibility to optimize and can optimize. They can make better choices. And so this is why we use terms like metabolic fitness, right? Metabolic health is the old concept. It's you either are healthy or you're not. Fitness is, as we know with physical fitness, something that you have to put in focus, effort, and repetition on. You're not born physically fit. And so metabolic fitness is exactly the same. You have to know, you have to have information that you are regularly updating, and you have to make choices that initially require some effort and ultimately with repetition become habit. And that leads to long-term, the goals that you're looking for. And so, we start that process with metabolic awareness, which is closing the loop between an action and a reaction. And that's what lights the bulb for people. That's when they realize, oh man, this is amazing. Like my body is speaking to me and I understand now what I can do differently and ultimately, get onto the right trajectory. So education, content production, it's going to be a huge component of Levels' approach for the entire life of the company. We want a very exciting, interesting lifestyle brand that people want to be a part of, a community that people come to better understand how, to tweak inside of the main product. How can we continue to evolve the technology? And we're always going to look to our audience and our customers for that. So we're very community oriented. We're very much education oriented, trying to get this information into the hands of people who need it. And what'll be interesting is once we get to the point where we are truly mainstream, which is going to require some advances in the hardware technology for sure, as to bring prices down and accessibility up. We'll be seeing, I think, a real sort of zeitgeist shift where people are by default, concerned with their health information the way that they were once concerned with their finance information, for example. So using this sort of technology to have a good understanding of the quote unquote deposits and transactions, the withdrawals they're making each day on their long-term metabolic health and projecting into the future and ensuring that, not only are they financially set up for retirement, but they're also going to be healthy enough to enjoy it. So that requires us to start right now with a strong education approach.
Sure. So we look at that, the brand piece, the information, the education. What else should folks be on the lookout for when you think about maybe the 6 to 8 months, maybe even just closing out this year? What's in the pipeline and what should we keep an eye out for?
Well, right now, again, we're in beta. We're really getting some strong signals that the product is meeting the requirement, which is that behavior change is easy and obvious. If people know how to improve from the minute they put the device on, because the Levels software is telling them exactly where to look, then we're succeeding. And so that's what we're seeing. And as a result, we're starting to prep for our full launch, which will be likely in the early or mid-fall sometime. And at that point, we'll be probably releasing some pre-orders first through the website, and then ultimately our full launch, again, this around the holiday time. And so, people should look out for, I highly recommend signing up for our wait list. And we send a lot of great information through there, but we also send out, when we publish new blogs, new content, it's a really meaningful way of understanding why this is relevant. No matter who you are likely struggling with some goal or trying to optimize something in your life that could benefit from better metabolic health. So I highly recommend that. And then, we'll be launching fairly soon. And we have a lot of great demand, and I'm very excited to be able to expand, out of this beta mode and into the real thing.
Yeah, certainly an exciting time. And wrapping up, we'll get you out here on this. You kind of alluded to it, but go ahead and give it to folks. Where can they learn more, get in touch with you, sign up for the beta and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So levelshealth.com or levels.health. And the blog is levelshealth.com/blog. We highly recommend, again, to sign up for the waitlist. You'll see the email box there on the website, and follow along on Twitter and Instagram @UnlockLevels. And then, I highly recommend my co-founder, Casey. She publishes some amazing stuff through her personal Instagram, Dr. Casey's Kitchen. She's entirely plant-based, but she uses CGM to tailor a really amazing approach to diet and wellness generally. So people really like to sort of appreciate her approach and see, how this technology can be implemented in a specific dietary philosophy, even though Levels doesn't have, an overarching one-size-fits-all approach. And so, reach out to us through those channels and follow along.
Excellent. And likewise, I encourage people to as well. I follow along with the Levels team on social and try to keep up with you with what everybody's doing. So definitely give them a follow. And Josh, I appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, it was awesome. I really appreciate these are the topics I like to explore. So what does the future look like? And how are we going to get there? So I appreciate the questioning.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's episode. For more from Fit Insider, visit insider.fit.co and subscribe to our weekly newsletter for insights and analysis on the business of fitness and wellness. Then, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. See you next time.